Story 1. I fall hard and I fall quick. All this is due to not ever really receiving much affection until my 20s and being isolated and bullied a lot growing up. The result is that when someone shows me some affection, I get attached and will do anything for that person. It has negatively affected relationships as I give my affection to people who treat me poorly and get walked all over. Wow, this definitely blew up and struck a chord with a lot of you. While I cannot respond to every message, I have read them all. You all matter so much and are wonderful people who deserve love and respect. Thank you for all the support as well. Reddit is an amazing place at times. Story 2. For me, it comes with intense black and white anxiety. When it goes well, it goes really well, and I feel confident and comfortable. I fall in love hard and fast. But if they take too long to respond to my text, I start worrying that maybe I said the wrong thing. If they cancel on plans, I assume they don't like me enough to make time for me, and I think about it all day. Sometimes I make excuses to see them that I know are extremely transparent. For example, I left my shampoo at your place, but I can't help myself. I know these thoughts are probably not true, and I don't have them for friendships, but romantic relationships have a way of making me feel extremely vulnerable, and I don't like it. Story 3. I don't fall quickly, but I fall hard. And honestly, it sucks a fair bit because everything else seems to dull in comparison. Like the whole day is cloudy, and the sun shines when I see her, talk to her, even get a message from her. Then she goes her way, and all is dull again. As for affecting other relationships, I'll often trade time with others for time with her without a thought. Some people are understanding, some are not. Story 4. Falling in love with someone you don't want to date is irritating. The person has that unquantifiable X factor that gets me stuck on them. However, there's a circumstance in my life or a big red flag of theirs that keeps me from pulling the trigger. I'm aware it's happening, and it's a dumb feeling I can't get rid of quickly. The sensation itself is quite enjoyable, in my opinion. I just don't like spinning my wheels when I'm not going anywhere. Feels like a waste of time. Someone distinguished this feeling as infatuation, and while this emotional stuff can be subjective, I feel that term is more accurate. Story 5. Contrary to most people, I don't really like the nervousness that comes along with falling in love. A bit of nervousness is fine, but I tend to get extremely nervous. I remember when I was riding the train to meet my wife for our first big date. At this point, I was already infatuated with her. I was literally trembling all over. It's a miracle I didn't get a heart attack or something. It hasn't affected any of my relationships badly. It's just a bit of a pain to go through. Of course, the butterflies can also be really wonderful, but generally speaking, I'm glad I'm so relaxed and intimate with my wife now. I remember sitting next to my phone, anxiously waiting for a reply, and every time she sent me a text message, my pulse shot through the roof, and I was almost incapable of actually picking up my phone and reading her text. If this nervousness goes on for several weeks, it can be pretty exhausting. Story 6. I don't like how I feel the need to reprioritize my time. Before I met my wife, I was very active. I was involved with some recreational sports teams and I was working out daily, but now I don't do any of that. And it's not her fault. She didn't ask me to give any of it up. I just feel the need to give all of my time to being with her. She's very supportive of me taking time for myself, but I usually feel guilty. Story 7. It's easy to make them out to be perfect and put them on a pedestal. Tearing them down in our minds to the levels of us mere mortals is a lesson I didn't learn for a long time. Story 8. The only thing I can think of that I don't like is how drastically devastated I feel when I've hurt or upset her. Feels like my whole world is falling down. I don't ever feel like that about anything else. Story 9. I dislike falling in love with the wrong women. You often don't know they are not right for you until you are invested a lot, and then it just really sucks if it doesn't work out. Falling in love with the right women who reciprocate is probably one of the best feelings you can have. Story 10. The power over me that it gives her, especially if we're not at the point where it's known to be mutual. It's a very vulnerable and uncomfortable thing, knowing you love them but you don't know what they think of you, not really. Story 11. I feel like I have to constantly be the one doing the song and dance to get her to like me, and the woman never has to do any work to impress me. Even though there is a mutual attraction, I'm the one who has to crack the jokes, ask the questions, and be sweet. It's really exhausting. And if it ends, you then stop talking to somebody you thought you had something with and then start over with a different person. Continually putting energy into connections that end up fizzling out is really disheartening and makes me numb to any sort of relationships in the future because I want to protect my heart. Since any time I've let my guard down and get hurt, it's searing hot, filled with anxiety, nausea, and inflated feelings of infatuation, even if that's not where you were at before. That's another thing. When you sort of like somebody and then feel them pull away or just ghost you, I become briefly hyper-infatuated, even though before that it was a crush at best. That was a lot longer than I expected it to be. Story 12. The lack of free time is challenging. I am very much an individual who enjoys my own company. Having to consider another person when deciding what to do can sometimes be difficult. Story 13. Sometimes I get insecure about them talking to other guys or having guy friends. I believe this is because my mother and father both cheated a lot when they were married during my childhood. My siblings and I knew about it because it wasn't much of a secret. In fact, sometimes our dad would bring women he was having affairs with around us. So as you can probably imagine, this affected me and my siblings, and all three of us have some deeply ingrained trust issues. I find it hard to believe that anyone has ever been able to have a successful, long-lasting relationship with no cheating involved whatsoever. I have this limiting belief that in certain circumstances, anyone would cheat. I know this is irrational, but as a child, I wanted my parents to have a happy, healthy, monogamous relationship, and the fact that they had quite the opposite left an imprint on my ability to trust other people. How has this negatively affected my relationships? Very negatively, to say the least. To leave on a good note, because this has probably depressed everyone reading it, I am currently working through my problems and facing demons. I am aware of the fact that I must focus on loving myself and trusting myself before expecting that from other people. I am currently not in a situation where therapy is a practical option because I am active duty in the military. However, when I get out, I definitely will be seeking professional help for problems stemming from childhood trauma. In the meantime, I tend to be mindful of my anger and what triggers my distrust in people, and I am actively working on making a bad situation better and perhaps even good. Story 14. You can lose yourself and tolerate things that you normally wouldn't accept. I became better off when I learned to be open to giving women complete independence and still drawing a line when I was being treated poorly. Story 15. It's not falling in love that I dislike. It's the woman knowing I've fallen in love with her. When I was younger, that made me very easy to manipulate, and many women took advantage of that. As soon as a girl found out I loved her, it pretty much devolved into her stringing me along until she got bored. It's been a long time since those days, but that feeling is one of the things that made me finally walk away from dating. Opening yourself up like that leaves you vulnerable and easy to take advantage of. It's not a good feeling, and there's no payoff from it. I've been much happier learning to fall in love with myself and forgetting dating entirely. Story 16. I tend to fall in love with women who I am friends with. First off, I do not want to fall in love with them, but there is something about how friends treat each other. With friends, you can be yourself and have the best time. I guess that's why I always fall for the women I am in a friendship with. They get me. They accept me. They like who I am. I am not good at dating because I feel like I have to be someone I am not. When I'm on a date, I am almost never myself entirely. When I'm with a girl I'm friends with, I start to be myself and they accept me for that. I'm only 15, so I don't have much experience with women yet, but I'll take any advice I can from any of you more experienced guys. Story 17. This is a super selfish response, so be warned. I hate that I have to consider somebody else in my day-to-day. I'm young, 23-year-old male, and just want to live my life, do my own thing, and figure out my stuff. It's inconvenient to have to work somebody else into my life when I'm already bad at time management, but at the same time, I wouldn't trade said person for the world. You win some and you lose some, but at least I understand that time management is the issue, not my significant other. Story 18. The resentment you feel if they do not feel the same way, or if they are somehow unavailable. It's hard to keep negative emotions down, especially when you so badly want to be with them, to be paid their attention. But when you get some attention, your brain resets, and you're love struck again. Story 19. I tend to forget about my responsibilities and prioritize them and the time spent with them before anything else. It has negatively affected my work and family life. So, I haven't had a legitimate girlfriend in maybe a year and a half because of this. I am currently working on making my priorities come first before I get a girlfriend again. Story 20. Falling in love with an immature woman is really bad and will bring negativity to the relationship. She might lie and make up things just to see if you are a good man or not instead of being patient for some years. One day a real situation will happen and your loyalty will show. Story 21. I am a sucker for girls who are way above my league. The fact that I do not even stand a chance. The depressing reality that they will never be attracted to me. Everything about trying to find the one and making a move. Story 22. It makes you dumb. You become blind to the red flags. When I fall in love, I fall out of it quickly and get bored as well. I want the good parts of a relationship, but none of the boring parts, which is not realistic, so I do not get into a relationship. Story 23. I'm generally a very confident flirter and can talk to women easily. But when I've fallen for someone, I immediately lose that ability. There are very few things I find more frustrating than that. Story 24. The important push and pull that comes with keeping women on their toes goes out the window when you are starved for affection and compliments as a man. Your game just slips when you realize how desperate you are to love someone. It's a vulnerability that comes with putting yourself out there, I guess. Story 25. In those early stages of a relationship, a lot of the communication happens indirectly. By that, I mean things aren't said, you have to read between the lines, understand body language, and there is always some amount of guesswork. I'm a very direct person, and I struggle with reading between the lines. The early stage of any relationship is too stressful for me, so right now I'm single. If I found a woman who was as direct as me, played no games, and was upfront about everything, that would be ideal. But the vast majority of women don't seem to be like that at all. Story 26. Well, I am 6 months out of a long-term relationship with the first person I ever truly felt love for, and apparently it has just killed that part of me. I feel like I am chasing that rush of love at first sight that will never come back. Twice now I have started dating really great, smart, beautiful women, but then just ended things because I do not feel that same spark. Story 27. When I fall in love, I get consumed entirely by the feeling and lose touch with managing my own life. It often takes a lot of sustaining healthy habits that strengthen my boundaries for me to get to a point where I have the kind of relationship with someone that produces those feelings. The thing is, I always end up losing myself in the other person and messing up my life right when I need to be at my healthiest emotionally. Story 28. There is a song called Wedding Party that was written by a guy about his experience going to a wedding right in the middle of getting a divorce. I really related to his premise that love makes you disappear. I'm very happily married for about 5 months now, but my friendships and relationships with family have been hard to maintain. I do feel like I dropped off the map sometimes, and it feels awful. Story 29. That if I actually allow myself to fall in love hard, it usually drives the woman away. I fall a lot quicker than women do initially, at least for the first infatuation. Story 30. I don't like the fact that I find the whole thing about relationships, dating, crushes, and intimacy deeply uncomfortable. To that end, I just don't really have relationships. I just keep to myself. It's really easy to avoid them when dating requires a bunch of effort on the man's part. Don't put it in, and one can quite comfortably coast along as a bachelor who just doesn't register on girl radar. Story 31. I think a lot of us straight guys tend to commit or take it seriously faster than a lot of women do, especially in our high school and post-college years. In my case, I think it's been a contributing factor as to why I handle breakups terribly. All 3 of my major relationships have ended with the girl breaking up with me because of how the future and college have changed them. Life going different directions, personality changes, and discovering her sexuality respectively. And the major theme was that the relationship was limiting them at a time that's all about figuring out who you are and where your life is going. It creates havoc in me because my brain knows that that's a valid reason to end a relationship if done honestly and with good communication. My first and most recent ones were. But the pain that comes with it just drowns it out, and I alienate exes who would otherwise still be good friends to me. It seems a bit wrong to say breakups have caused me trauma because, In the grand scale of things that cause trauma, a bad breakup is basically nothing, but I think it's at least part of why I have a bad abandonment complex that causes me to lash out in pain and not listen to logic and respect. If any of you have some relevant experience and answers, I'd love to hear it. I'm in a very bad place right now,